Welcome back to NetLab 5, Adding and Managing Virtual Hardware. This is Richard Golson, and I'm going to be taking us through Part 1, Examining the Virtual Machine's Configuration. So in this task, we will use the VMware Host Client to examine a virtual machine's configuration. Viewing a virtual machine's configuration is useful for general virtual machine maintenance and troubleshooting purposes. So I've already logged on to SA Student, and you can see here that I've opened my web browser, and rather than logging into the vSphere client, I'm going to log into the VMware Host Client. The VMware Host Client is running on the VMware host. Now I have two VMware hosts, so I'm going to log on to this VMware Host Client, and I'll do it by its IP address. And so this host is at 172.20.10.51. And so I'll open a new browser tab, enter that address, and that'll allow my SA student to connect to the VMware Host Client application running on that server. So let me drop back over to SA Student, open the new tab. I already have this in my clipboard memory, and let me hit the return key, and I'm redirected to the UI login page. And let me go ahead and put the credentials in. Now the credentials for the ESXi server are a little bit different. It's root at training $. So let me go ahead and type that in. And log her in. Please note that give yourself some time for the lab to launch and be ready, and give it a little bit of time for the web page to actually come up for the ESXi server. This came up really fast because I've been in and out of it now for a little while, but this could take a little bit of time to get booted up and ready, just like the vCenter server. All right, there's a little warning down here that this host is being managed by the vCenter server. By and large, if you're running vCenter, the kind of actions I'm going to perform really should be done through vCenter. However, this is going to show that if your vCenter goes down or is unavailable, you can actually do this work from the ESXi server itself. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, what we're going to do in this section is really just examine the interface, and the configuration for the virtual machine, and look at the hardware. So what I'm going to do first is select my virtual machines node, and there's the Photon virtual machine that I want to power on. So I can right click on that, select power on, bring that up. And you'll see that powered on the virtual machine right there. All right, next step, I'll go ahead and select that, and you'll see that it opens it or expands its view under virtual machines. Now I'm not going to open up the monitor. I'm not logging in. What I want to do is take a look at the hardware. And so you'll notice that in this general information page here, I can see the hardware configuration, performance summary, general information. You can get an overview running down the side here. If this information seems out of date, we have a refresh button up here. Notice that went from 0 to 12 megahertz. If I scroll down here, I can see that I have some general information regarding networking, VMware tools, hardware configuration. Looking down the side here, I can see that I have a single hard disk. This is my root disk here. And then looking down this way, we can get a performance summary and resource consumption. Now, this pane down here, recent tasks, is consuming more space than I need it to. So what I'll do is I'll minimize it. So I have a small minimize button right here. I'm going to press this. You'll notice a tab opens on the bottom. I can always bring this back up by clicking on it, but hitting that will minimize that, and that'll make it a little easier to view within here. Now, here's my hardware configuration. So let's scroll down a little bit and take a look in here. A couple things I wanted you to notice on here as well. We do have these arrows here that can collapse these little panes down here. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse some of these. And this way we can focus on the hardware configuration. Take a look down here. We can see that we can expand the hard disk 1. And within here, we can see that we have this single hard disk. And you notice that it has information regarding its backing, meaning the files that back this hard disk. And so here's that file right there. That's located in Data Store 1. So we have in Data Store 1 a VMDK file, which is the file for this hard disk. It has a single file that makes up the hard disk. Some hard disks, you'll actually see multiple files, especially in larger hard disks. Here's the capacity. This indicates it's thin provisioned versus thick provisioned. Note the controller, your first disk, and this is a SCSI disk, so it's using a SCSI controller, and it's located at 0:0. You'll notice the next SCSI disk we make will be located at 0:1, then we'll see the next one at 0:2. Also notice the mode is dependent, and this really indicates the behavior of that VMD file when the snapshot is taken. Other things to take note of is the CPU. You can get details right here, the core sockets, core per socket, and memory as well. And then down here we can see we have network adapter showing the network it's connected to, but the MAC address right here. Under floppy drive, we can see that it's backed remote, it's connected no, so that means a floppy drive on the ESXi server itself. Video card, 4 megabytes, this will be a virtual video card. 3D graphics are disabled, so all this kind of neat detail that you can see in here. And then finally that CD DVD drive, what actually backs it if it's connected. Here's an others, shows us some SCSI adapters. Okay, so that is our hardware configuration. Now, if we take a look down here under the storage consumption, or resource consumption, I should say, if I open that up, we can take a look at the specifics for the storage. And you'll notice that the 768 megabytes provision should match with what we see for capacity up here. This is what's uncommitted, not shared, and used. So all this kind of storage information that could be useful to you. Let's take a look at the general information on the opposite side here. So we can see under general information, currently it's not showing any hostname information. Let's try refreshing this one more time, see if we can get that hostname information to show up. That's not really picking it up. Oh, there it did it. It took a little while. It's also giving me both my IP and my MAC address, or my IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. And it's telling me that the VMware tools are not managed. So they're installed, but they're not being managed by vSphere. And here's that disk information again. So you can see I have a single disk on here. You can even put little notes down in here. All right, so that's kind of our overview or summary of the hardware configuration on this virtual machine. We're going to next take a look at how we can actually add additional or add new hardware. I'll see you then.